What if I told you that your DNA is not who you are, but just a program running, and that there's a single word, a specific vibration, capable of hacking this system and rewriting its instructions? This isn't a theory. It's knowledge that was locked away in the grimoire of Thoth and deliberately hidden from you. In the next 30 seconds, I'm going to give you the first proof that your body is a biological antenna, that modern science ignored this on purpose. But what I'll reveal at the end of this video is the exact word, and I guarantee you'll never look at yourself the same way again. The proof is right here. For decades, science called 90% of your genetic code junk DNA. That wasn't a mistake. It was the perfect excuse not to investigate what they couldn't understand, because that useless part of your DNA isn't junk. It's a receiver, a sophisticated biological antenna that is, right now, waiting for a command. And a Russian biophysicist, Pjotr Garjajev, proved this by detecting a phantom DNA, an energy field that remains even after the molecule is removed. Your DNA, then, is not matter, it's information. Now you know you have an antenna, but what's the signal, and why does it seem to be turned off? The answer isn't in biology, but in a hermetic principle that states your mind is the remote control. Every thought you have is already sending weak and chaotic signals to this antenna. But what happens when you send a focused signaler, single word with the right intention? It's like switching from a dim light bulb to a laser that can cut steel. Stay with me, because we're getting close to the word. But first, you need to understand how to prepare your antenna to receive the command without burning out the system. To understand this power, we first need to look at where modern science got it most wrong, a miscalculation that hid the key right under our noses. The quote from the Corpus Hermeticum, "Only like can understand like," is the perfect lens to understand this mistake. If we see ourselves only as biological machines, we'll only be able to understand the mechanical aspects of our being. Science, in its materialist pursuit, looked at our genome and committed an act of extreme arrogance. It labeled about 90% of our entire genetic code as junk DNA. Think about what that means. For decades, the official narrative, taught in universities and printed in textbooks, was that the vast majority of your biological instruction manual was useless. It was perhaps one of the greatest and most pretentious mistakes in the history of biology. Public confession of ignorance, cleverly disguised as an established scientific fact. The logic was as simple as it was flawed. If we can't figure out its function with the technology we have, then it probably doesn't have one. The truth, however, was much more humiliating for the scientific community. It's not that this portion of DNA was useless. We were just ignorant of its utility. We didn't have the technology and, more importantly, we didn't have the awareness or openness to comprehend such a complex information system. We assumed that if we didn't understand the language, it was just meaningless noise. It was like discovering a vast ancient library and, not knowing the language, declaring that all the books were just scrap paper. What if that vast portion of our genome isn't junk, but the most crucial piece of the entire biological puzzle? What if that region, so casually dismissed, is actually a structure far more sophisticated than we could imagine? What if it's a biological antenna of cosmic proportions, receiver and transmitter of information that operates on a level science has barely begun to suspect? An antenna that, in most of us, is quietly waiting for the right signal to be activated. This possibility completely transforms our understanding of ourselves. It's no longer a matter of faulty hardware or useless genes. It becomes a matter of signal and frequency. The existence of this dark matter of the genome isn't a design flaw of nature, but an invitation to look beyond the obvious, to question the truths we were handed. It's the gateway to a new paradigm of human biology, one that the ancient sages seemed to understand intuitively. The investigation into this vast and mysterious portion of our genetic code is only beginning to crawl, but it already points to functions that challenge conventional biology, functions that involve regulation, communication, and a complexity that suggests a much higher purpose. And it's exactly here that cutting-edge science begins reluctantly to meet ancient wisdom. The idea of a biological antenna isn't just a poetic metaphor. It's being explored by researchers who dare to think outside the box. What if that vast portion of our genome isn't junk, but actually the most important piece of all? What if it's a biological antenna of cosmic proportions, waiting for the right signal? It's precisely at this point that the highly controversial and fascinating research of Russian biophysicist Pjotr Garjajev becomes a beacon in the dark. He and his team dared to look at DNA not as a static molecule, but as a dynamic communication system, and their findings, though sidelined by conventional science, opened the door to a completely new reality. Garjajev proposed theories that sound like science fiction, but were observed in the lab. One of them is the phantom DNA effect. In his experiments, even after physically removing a DNA sample from a container, the measuring equipment continued to detect a structured energy field in the space, as if a ghost of the molecule was still there, holding the information in its pure form. This suggests that DNA isn't just the molecule, but also the energy field that organizes it, a field that persists in space. His most radical idea, however, was that our DNA functions like a real biological internet. He described the double helix not just as a set of genes, but as a complex and sophisticated fractal antenna. An antenna capable not only of storing genetic information for protein building, but also of receiving and transmitting data non-locally through waves of light and sound. In other words, your DNA is in constant communication with the environment and, potentially, with a much larger field of information. The immediate reward of visualizing this possibility is a seismic shift in your self-image. Your body stops being just a simple machine of flesh and bone, biochemical automaton doomed to follow a rigid genetic program. Instead, it reveals itself as a finely designed biological receiver, a biocomputer, tuned to resonate with the vibrations of the universe. You're not an isolated island. You're a terminal connected to a vast cosmic information network. This perspective forces us to ask questions that traditional biology never considered. If your body is a receiver, what kind of information was it designed to pick up? If your DNA is an antenna, who or what is transmitting the signal? Garjajev's research places us on the frontier where quantum physics, biology, and spirituality meet, suggesting that the language of genetics might be far more like the language of vibration and consciousness than we ever imagined. The mystery that arises from this realization is both profound and disturbing. It forces us to confront a fundamental question that might hold the key to all human potential. If our DNA is indeed a fully functional antenna piece of biological technology, capable of communicating with the cosmos, then the most important question of all becomes inevitable. What is the signal it was designed to receive? If our DNA is indeed an antenna, what is the signal it was designed to receive? And more importantly, why, in the vast majority of people, does this biological antenna seem to be operating in a low-power standby mode? Why does it seem to pick up only the chaotic static of our own mental clutter and environmental noise, instead of tuning into the true symphony of the cosmos? It's a paradoxical situation, like having the most advanced radio in the world and leaving it permanently stuck between stations, hearing only white noise and static, never realizing it could play the most beautiful and harmonious music. This idea of a poorly tuned antenna resonates in a perfectly eerie way with the ancient teachings of Thoth in the enigmatic emerald tablets. He states clearly and unequivocally, "In man is the balance of all things." This seemingly simple phrase is the master key to understanding the Hermetic principle of correspondence, encapsulated in the famous maxim, "As above, so below." This is not a poetic saying, it's a functional law of the universe. If the universe, the macrocosm, is a vast and complex vibrational structure, an infinite web of frequencies, energy, and information, then the human being, as a microcosm, must, by an inescapable law of correspondence, contain within themselves an analogous mechanism. DNA, with its helical and fractal structure, would be the physical and biological manifestation of this universal law, the living bridge that connects individual consciousness to the entire web of creation, the meeting point between the finite and the infinite. Therefore, the antenna that exists within you is not just a passive biological structure, it is a cosmic principle embodied in your flesh and bones. It represents the sacred meeting point between heaven and earth, between the spiritual and the material, between what is visible and what is invisible. Every strand, every helix, every atom of your genetic code is designed to vibrate in harmonic resonance with the totality of the universe, like a tuning fork responding to the music of the spheres. The problem, then, isn't the receiver. The design of your antenna is perfect, a masterpiece of cosmic engineering. The problem lies in the signal we ourselves are constantly sending and, consequently, receiving. The static that prevents us from hearing the sublime music of the cosmos doesn't come from some external flaw or manufacturing defect. It's generated from within, from the constant noise of an ungoverned mind and a misaligned heart. This internal static isn't some abstract or philosophical idea. It has a physical, real, and measurable effect happening in your body every second of every day. It's a power that science is only just beginning to dare to measure, a power you constantly feel, but perhaps have never recognized for what it really is. Living proof that your consciousness is shaping your biology in real time. The static that blocks the music doesn't come from outside, it comes from inside. This is the power science doesn't dare to measure. Have you ever felt a lump in your throat before a difficult conversation? That physical pressure that seems to choke your words? Or felt butterflies in your stomach when falling in love? A flutter that feels real and tangible? This isn't poetry. It's not just a metaphor. It's your biology responding in real time to information, to a thought, to an emotion. It's epigenetics happening live, every second. Your body is constantly listening to the story your mind is telling. Every thought, every belief, every worry sets off a cascade of chemical and electrical reactions that travel throughout your system. Very simply put, Epigenetics shows us that your DNA is the hardware, the raw potential, the piano keyboard. But your thoughts, your beliefs, and the emotional environment you live in act like the software, like the pianist's fingers deciding which keys to play and what music to create. The pioneering work of cellular biologists like Bruce Lipton, detailed in his transformative book, The Biology of Belief, clearly and scientifically demonstrates this. He shows how a single cell's perception of its environment directly controls its behavior and gene expression. If a cell in a petri dish perceives an environment of nourishment and love, it opens up, grows, and thrives. If it perceives an environment of fear or threat, it closes down, contracts, and enters a defensive mode, altering its genetics to fight or flee. Now, apply that same logic to yourself. Your body isn't a single entity, but a vast and cooperative community of trillions of cells. And your mind, with its endless stream of thoughts and beliefs, functions as the central government that sends out decrees to this community. Every thought of fear is a decree of high alert. Every thought of love is a decree of peace and prosperity. Your cells are listening and obeying every command without question. The mystery that unfolds from here is inevitable and takes us to the heart of the matter. If our random thoughts, daily worries, and uncontrolled emotional reactions already cause such deep and measurable effects on our biology, what would happen if a single word, loaded with focused intention and the correct vibrational frequency, were used deliberately? What kind of master command would it send to our cells? It would be like going from a virus-infected, slow, and faulty operating system to a clean, optimized, high-performance software. What kind of healing program, vitality, or genius could that word install into your biological system? This idea takes us directly to the core of the first and most important Hermetic principle that the ancient alchemists understood not as philosophy, but as an operational manual of the universe. What would happen if a single word, loaded with focused intention, were used deliberately? This leads us directly to the heart of the first Hermetic principle. The all is mind. The universe is mental. Alchemy, in its purest and original form, was never about transforming lead into gold in a physical lab with flasks and furnaces. That was the outer metaphor, the exoteric veil to hide a much deeper and more powerful process, an entirely internal process, the transmutation of consciousness itself. The great work, the magnum opus of the alchemists, was the journey to purify and elevate one's own mind to a point where it could influence matter. The true alchemist, in silence, focus, and meditation, projected their mind onto the raw material, the prima material, which symbolized their own unrefined consciousness. It was their focused belief, unwavering intention, an inner vibration that served as the true catalyst for change, the secret fire that transformed the lead of fear and ignorance into the gold of wisdom and freedom. What biologist Bruce Lipton now calls the biology of belief is in fact the rediscovery and scientific validation of what the alchemists always called the great work. They knew, from direct experience, that the mind wasn't a byproduct of the brain, but the organizing force that precedes and shapes biological reality. Modern science is only just beginning to catch up to this ancient wisdom, proving in the lab what mystics always knew in their inner sanctuaries, fully admitting that the mind can rewrite biology isn't a small update in our knowledge, it's a revolution. It wouldn't just change all the medical books and how we treat diseases. It would shake the very foundation of our materialist civilization, which is based on the premise that matter is the only reality and that consciousness is just an accident. It would be proof that we are far more powerful than we've been led to believe. But this radical shift, this deep transformation, doesn't start with an intellectual thought or the acceptance of a new theory. It doesn't begin in the rational mind, which is always doubting and analyzing. It starts in a much deeper place, much older a place that holds the memory of all we have ever been and all we can become. It begins in the living, pulsing memory of each of your trillions of cells. This radical shift doesn't begin with an intellectual thought. It starts in a much deeper, much older place in the living memory of your cells. It is in this cellular archive that the true key to transformation is stored. And it is here that the one word exerts its deepest power, a power that conventional science can't explain, but that esoteric wisdom has always pointed to as the final secret of self-transformation. This radical change doesn't begin with an intellectual thought. It begins in a much deeper, much older place in the living memory of your cells. And this is where the one word comes into play, as an external sound, but as a resonant vibration that speaks the language your cells understand. And this word is not a complicated Sanskrit mantra, a secret spell whispered in a dead language, or a magic formula from an ancient book. The deepest and best kept secret of alchemy and Hermeticism is that the most effective word of power for you is the vibrational sound of your own name. But it's crucial to understand that we're not talking about the name. Your parents gave you not the social label you carry on your documents and use to introduce yourself to the world. We're talking about your true name, your golden name, a unique sonic vibration that encapsulates the totality of your divine essence, your purpose, and your energetic signature in this universe. It's the fundamental note of your soul, the frequency that defines you at your purest level, before all layers of conditioning and social identity. To pronounce this name more, if you haven't discovered it yet, to pronounce the highest and purest intention of your heart, like I am love, I am free, or simply I am from a state of absolute heart coherence, is the supreme act of self. It is a powerful declaration to the universe and, more importantly, to every cell in your body of who you truly are. It's an act of claiming your sovereignty, of aligning your biology with your deepest spiritual truth. In the ancient mystery schools of Egypt and Greece, the long and arduous journey of an initiate culminated in this exact moment, the discovery and correct pronunciation of their true name. It was considered the apex of initiation, the point at which the disciples stopped being a seeker and became a master of themselves, capable of commanding the elements of their own inner and, consequently, outer reality. It was the secret of self-transmutation. Science can't explain this because it studies the collective, but the true name is your vibrational signature, the most personal and non-transferable thing there is. It's the ultimate command because it aligns your entire being with your most fundamental truth. But how do you actually use this knowledge? The revelation of your true name isn't an abstract concept, but a vibrational tool. The first step is understanding that pronouncing it isn't just a vocal act, it's an act of embodiment. You need to feel the vibration of the chosen word, whether it's your golden name or a pure intention like I am free, resonating in every cell. To begin, find a quiet place where you won't be interrupted. Sit with your spine straight to allow energy to flow freely. Close your eyes and start the heart coherence practice we prepared earlier, breathing slowly and rhythmically, focusing your attention on the heart area. Do this for a few minutes until you feel a deep calm settle in, until the noise of the outer world and the chaos of your mind start to dissolve. This is the fertile soil, the sacred vacuum where the seed of your intention can be planted and germinate without interference. Now, bring the chosen word into your awareness. Don't just think it, feel it. If it's I am love, feel the emotion of unconditional love filling your chest. If it's I am peace, feel the serenity of a still lake spreading through your whole being. You are charging the word with your emotional energy, transforming it from an empty sound into a frequency loaded with information. This is the step that infuses power into the vibration, the fusion of intention with emotion, the real engine of biological transformation. Then, and only then, pronounce the word. Do it softly, almost like a vibrating whisper, feeling the sound emerge not from your throat, but from the center of your chest. Let the vibration rise upward into your head and downward through your whole body. Repeat the pronunciation a few times, slowly and deliberately, keeping full focus on the physical sensation of the vibration and the emotion you've tied to it. You're not speaking to the world. You're speaking to your inner universe, your DNA. After saying the word, remain in silence for a few more moments. Notice the sensations in your body. You might feel tingling, a wave of heat, a lightness, or a sense of expansion. Don't judge or analyze, just witness. This is your biological system responding to the command. It's confirmation that your internal pharmacy received the prescription and is starting to produce the medicine. This moment of silent observation is crucial because it's when you integrate the new frequency into your energy field. This practice, when done regularly, starts to create new neural pathways and reconditions your body's response. You're training your biology to operate from a new base frequency. The goal isn't to do it once and expect a miracle, but to turn it into a daily ritual of alignment. By doing this, you're not just activating a command, you're rewriting your fundamental vibrational signature, a truth that's engraved not only in your soul, but also in the chemical memory you inherited from all who came before you. That cellular memory, this living archive, is the reason why you carry fears you can't rationally explain, or have talents and affinities that seem to appear out of nowhere without any clear training. It's the silent inheritance pulsing in your blood and echo of the lives, the struggles and the victories of everyone who came before you. Modern science, in its search for answers, is finally beginning to give a name to this ancient phenomenon: transgenerational epigenetic memory. This is the revolutionary discovery that the experiences of your ancestors, especially deep traumas and intense survival responses, can be passed on to future generations. And this transmission doesn't happen through stories told around a fire, but as a real chemical marker signature engraved directly in your DNA. Your ancestors didn't just give you your eye color, they gave you an echo of their lives. Scientific studies with animals have already proven this in chilling and conclusive ways. In one now famous experiment, mice were conditioned to feel deep fear when exposed to the scent of cherry blossoms. What shocked the scientific community was finding that their direct descendants, even their descendants' descendants, showed an innate fear and stress response to that same scent. despite never having encountered it before in their lives. The fear was inherited, coded, and passed through generations. This discovery is a turning point in our understanding of who we are. It proves we're not a blank slate when we're born. We arrive in this world carrying an invisible legacy, an emotional and survival-based baggage that belongs to our lineage. The unexplained phobias, the sadness with no clear cause, the self-sabotaging patterns that repeat these might not have started with you. They might simply be echoes of a past your biology hasn't forgotten, a story your body continues to tell. Now stop and think about the monumental and liberating implication of this. If trauma-fearful and contracting information can be engraved and transmitted through DNA as an invisible scar, then logic forces us to ask, why not the opposite? Why not the accumulated wisdom, the courage forged in battle, the resilience developed through countless challenges, and the brilliance that allowed your lineage to survive and evolve? All that positive potential must be in there too. This leads us to a deep shift in identity. You are not an isolated island, a being that started from zero. You are a continenter, living, pulsing result of thousands of years of human experience concentrated into one being. Within you exists a vast archival library of potentials and information that traces back to the beginning of your lineage. The question isn't whether you have access to this power, but how to unlock it. And it's exactly at this point that consciousness becomes a revolutionary tool. By recognizing these inherited patterns, you gain the power to transform them. The simple act of identifying a fear, a limitation, or even a strength that wasn't born with you but was passed down already creates space for more conscious choices. What was once destiny can now become decision. The past stops being a silent prison and becomes a source of learning and evolution. It's as if the key to your future was hidden in the untold stories of your own blood waiting to be used. The reward here is a shift in identity. You are not an island, you are a continent, the result of thousands of years of human experience. Within you is a vast archive, a library of potentials and information stretching back to the beginning of your lineage. The mystery then deepens and becomes even more fascinating. The word of power Thoth wrote about in his tablets might not be a command to create something entirely new out of nothing, but something much more subtle and powerful, a decryption key. Imagine this word as a specific sonic frequency, a perfectly tuned vibration, designed for one single purpose: to unlock those ancestral files that are dormant within you. It's meant to awaken the potential that already exists in your biology, asleep under thick layers of social conditioning, personal trauma, and the noise of modern life. Using this word would be like finally finding the correct password to access your own internal supercomputer, a system with processing power and a database you never dreamed you had. This idea aligns perfectly with one of Thoth's titles in ancient Egyptian texts, the Recorder. He was the one who recorded everything in the mythical halls of Amentia, dimension or state of consciousness, where the memory of all souls and all experiences is kept. The word of power would be the key that grants access to this cosmic library, starting with the section corresponding to your own lineage. It's the vibrational permission to read the books that contain your history and your potential. This unlocking function beautifully connects with the fundamental alchemical principle of solve, coagulate, solve and coagulate. For the true alchemist, the process of finding the inner gold, the ancestral wisdom, required first dissolving the impurities. It was necessary to break and cleanse the limiting thought patterns, the fears and inherited traumas that form the dense lead of our everyday personality. Only after this purification could the gold be revealed and coagulated into a new form. The word of power, in this context, would function as this universal solvent. Its frequency doesn't add anything new to you because you're already complete. On the contrary, it works by removing what is not truly you. It dissolves the layers of fear, doubt, shame, and limitation that were imposed on your lineage by generations of suffering and survival. It clears the channel, it purifies the line of communication with your deepest self and the wisdom of your ancestors. When understood this way, the word stops being some distant mystical concept and becomes a practical spiritual technology. It represents the real possibility of aligning body, mind, and spirit to a frequency that not only awakens memories but reorders internal patterns. Just as a tuning fork can harmonize a detuned instrument, this frequency can restore coherence between you and your ancestral purpose. It's the bridge between the limited human and the eternal being, allowing life to stop being just survival and become the full expression of who you truly are. By clearing the path, by purifying the channel, it allows pure memory, original wisdom, to finally coagulate, to manifest in your life as a new way of being, a new ability, a new perception of reality. It's a purification process through vibration, a cleansing of your biological hard drive. But the preparation for this moment starts with understanding a fundamental universal law. Every powerful sound, every meaningful creation is born from silence. Before the Big Bang, there was the void. Before the purest note of a symphony, there's the pause that gives it meaning and power. And before you can even think of speaking a word capable of commanding your DNA, you first need to learn how to turn off the constant noise that's bombarding you all the time, both from inside and outside. Your mind with its chaotic, repetitive inner dialogue and the external world, with its cacophony of distractions, notifications, and demands, create a vibrational static so dense it blocks any subtle and powerful command from being heard or processed by your biological system. It's like trying to tune into a distant radio station in the middle of a lightning storm. No matter how good your radio is, the static will overpower the signal. So the first practical step isn't to speak, but to be silent. It's about creating an internal space of silencer, fertile vacuum from which true intention can emerge with clarity and strength. Without that silence, any word you speak will just be more noise in the general chaos, powerless and directionless. The journey, at this point, stops being theoretical and becomes eminently practical. This is where we give you the first tangible and powerful tool of this exploration. It's not the word itself, because the word without the proper preparation is useless. It's the key that preps the lock, the method for creating the necessary silence, the technique to build what we call the architecture of silence. And that technique is the conscious creation of heart coherence. The same heart math institute that pioneered measuring the electromagnetic field of the heart also discovered that we can consciously influence this field through our breathing. By breathing in a rhythmic, focused, and intentional way, you begin to sync the rhythms of your heart with the electrical rhythms of your brain. This isn't just any relaxation exercise, it's a process that creates a real, measurable, and and highly ordered biological status state called coherence. This state of coherence is your first practical and immediate reward. It's a technique you can learn and use right now to exit stress mode, fight, or flight and enter a state of balance, clarity, and inner power. With simple charts, we can visualize how the chaotic, disordered waves of a stressed heart turn into smooth, sinusoidal, and harmonious waves. This is the true silence we're looking for, not the absence of sound in the environment, but the creation of a clear, powerful, and harmonious internal signal. The beauty of this process is that it doesn't depend on beliefs or specific traditions. It's universal and accessible to any human who breathes. When you practice heart coherence, you're literally tuning your body like a sacred instrument, preparing it to receive and emit higher frequencies. That alignment creates a state of receptivity that opens doors not just to mental clarity, but to deeper experiences of intuition, creativity, and spiritual connection. It's in this ordered silence that the word of power can finally resonate with authenticity. This is the true silence we seek, not the absence of sound, but the creation of a clear, powerful, harmonious internal signal. It's the sound of your own biology coming into tune. The mystery, however, is that this state of coherence does much more than just calm you down. It acts as both amplifier and tuner for your DNA antenna. Instead of being a passive receiver, bombarded by chaotic thoughts and random emotions, your DNA system becomes a focused and powerful transmitter. By practicing heart coherence, you're literally clearing the communication line between your consciousness and your trillions of cells. It's like upgrading from an old, noisy internet cable to a high-speed fiber optic connection. Your intentions, information can now travel without distortion, without static, reaching its final destination with clarity and precision. Preparing the channel is the first and most crucial step in the entire process. But sending the signal through this clean channel is an experience on a whole other level. This silencing and alignment process is the modern, practical version of the first phase of the great alchemical work, known as the nigredo, or blackening. In this initial phase, the alchemist had to symbolically die to the external world. He withdrew from noise, silenced his ego, and dove into the darkness of his own raw material, the primordial chaos of his ungoverned mind. It was an act of voluntary dissolution, of emptying to create space for the new. The practice of heart coherence is your own personal, controlled nigredo. It's the deliberate and conscious silencing of internal chaos to create the fertile vacuum from which true power can finally emerge. Every time you practice, you're withdrawing from the world of distractions and diving into the truth of your own being. You're learning to become the master of your own internal state instead of being a victim of external circumstances. When you practice this coherence, you're not just relaxing the body. You're building an inner templar sanctuary of silence and power. You're polishing the lens of your perception so you can see reality more clearly. You're tuning your biological instrument so it can finally play the most important and powerful note of your life, the note of your true essence. The line is being cleared. The channel is being opened. Now that the temple is ready and the silence has been established, a new question arises. What happens when the call is finally made? What is felt in the exact moment the word of power is spoken from this state of perfect coherence? The experience transcends common language, but it can be described as a moment of absolute power and unwavering clarity. What do you feel the instant the word is spoken? The pronunciation, in this state, isn't an act of brute force. It's not a scream tearing through the air, nor a timid, hesitant whisper. It's something entirely different. It's a vibration that seems to be born not from your throat or vocal cords, but from a deep point behind your tongue sound that resonates directly in the center of your chest, making your sternum vibrate. It's a sound not projected outward to the world, but inward to your inner universe. It's the only sound your heart not only hears, but instantly recognizes as its own lost language, the language of the source. Here, we reveal a crucial part of the secret without yet giving away the final word. The power doesn't lie in the exact phonetics of the word, like it's a computer password that must be typed correctly. The power lies in the perfect and simultaneous fusion of three elements that must occur at the same moment: the sound, the carrier frequency, the coherence, the total harmony of the transmitter, and the intention, the clear and unwavering information you're sending. The laser analogy is the most perfect to describe this phenomenon. The light from a regular bulb is incoherent. Its photons scatter in all directions, chaotically. It lights up, but it lacks focused power. Your daily, scattered, random thoughts are like that bulb, but the light of a laser is coherental. Its photons vibrate in perfect sync, in the same phase and direction. That coherence gives it the power to cut through steel. The word, spoken in the right state, is your personal laser. It's your consciousness, once scattered now, focused on a single point of absolute power. The experience of this moment is described by those who've lived it as a 0 point. For a microsecond, that feels like an eternity. Time stops. The noise of the world completely vanishes. Doubt, fear, hesitation, all the limiting mental programs dissolve in an overwhelming and unquestionable mental clarity. It's a moment of absolute certainty. Your body doesn't process the sound through your ears. It feels it as a wave of pure vibration that travels through each of your trillions of cells simultaneously, like a tuning fork that makes everything around it vibrate. It's a complete system resetter, master command sent, and, more importantly, confirmed by your biology in a way you feel in every fiber of your being. It's the confirmation that the order was received and accepted. This perfectly echoes what Thoth wrote in the Emerald Tablets. When the word has lost its sound for you, then you may command the elements. The word loses its external sound because it becomes a purely internal vibration, felt not heard. It's the practical application of the Hermetic principle of vibration, which says, nothing rests, everything moves, everything vibrates. The correct pronunciation is the act of aligning your personal vibration with the vibration of your purest intention, creating a resonance wave that reorganizes the lower vibrations of your physical matter. It's a complete system resetter, command sent and, more importantly, confirmed by your biology. The command has been sent. The system received the order. The confirmation was felt in every fiber of your being. But just like a computer that's received a critical update to its operating system, it can't keep running like before. It needs to reboot so the new instructions can be fully integrated. And it's in this biological reboot process that true transformation, deep healing, and the great promise of this journey are finally fulfilled. This reboot process begins with a deeply liberating truth. You don't heal yourself. You never did. You simply allow your body to activate the incredibly sophisticated self-healing program it has always had since birth. The word isn't the medicine. It's the key that finally opens the door to your internal pharmacy that contains the cure for any illness, the antidote to any poison. You're not introducing something foreign into your system. You're just restoring your original factory settings. Now we can connect all the dots of our journey into a clear picture. The word, spoken from a state of heart coherence, sends a powerful and clear electromagnetic signal through your heart field, the strongest field in the body. This signal, carried by the structured water in your body, travels instantly to all your cells. The DNA antenna, now clean, tuned, and receptive, picks up this precise information. This is where epigenetics kicks in a spectacular way. The signal instructs the receptors on the cell membranes to rewrite gene expression. Genes that were expressing stress, inflammation, and disease are turned off or silenced. At the same time, genes that were dormant, linked to cellular regeneration, the production of feel-good hormones like serotonin and dopamine, and the strengthening of the immune system are turned on or activated. It's real-time reprogramming. The big reward here is understanding the scientific how behind the magic. It's not some unexplainable miracle or an act of faith. It's a cascade of bioelectrical and biochemical reactions triggered by a single, focused, powerful frequency of information. It's proof that consciousness isn't some ghostly byproduct of the brain, but the primary organizing force that comes before and directs biology. You're witnessing the mind triumphing over matter, not through brute force, but through harmony and resonance. You activated the command. The biological cascade has started, and your body, with its innate intelligence, begins to obey the new order, to reorganize itself toward health and balance. But what about your mind? What happens to your perception of reality when you prove to yourself, undeniably, that the impossible is real? In that moment, the transformation is no longer just physiologically, becomes existential. Your self-perception changes, because you can no longer see yourself as a victim of external circumstances, or as a body limited to genetic inheritance. You see yourself as a co-creator, conscious agent, capable of interacting with your own biology and shaping your destiny. That awakening brings with it a huge responsibility to live in alignment with this new awareness, nurturing it daily so the reboot becomes not just an event, but a new way of being. What happens to your perception of reality when you prove to yourself, undeniably, that the impossible is real? You gain access to a power most people don't even dream exists. And power, my friend, is the ultimate test. Having the power to change yourself from the inside out is one thing. It's a monumental achievement. But the question almost no one asks, the one that separates the initiate from the amateuress: who do you become after the change happens? What do you do with that power? The journey doesn't end with healing or the manifestation of a desire. It truly begins with the responsibility that comes with that power. It's easy to want power when you don't have it, but few are prepared for the weight it carries. For the paradox of the guardian. The narrative now dives into the deep philosophy and spiritual ethics behind power. In sacred Egyptian texts, like the Book of the Dead, Thoth plays a crucial role in judging the soul after death. He is the one who weighs the heart of the deceased on a scale against the feather of Mahat, the goddess of truth, justice, and cosmic order. This was never about a moralistic judgment of good or bad, as we understand today. It was a measurement of spiritual physics. Was the heart in balance? Was it light, in coherence with universal truth, or heavy with the weight of ego, fear, anger, and disharmony? Only a heart as light as a feather could pass into the higher realms. The reward here is one of the most important lessons of the entire journey. Power is a neutral amplifier. It doesn't make you good or bad. It simply amplifies who you already are at your core. If your heart is full of selfishness and vanity, the power to heal yourself can turn into an obsession with eternal youth, or arrogant disdain for the weak who don't hold the same knowledge. If your heart is full of anger, power can become a tool for control and manipulation. The true use of Thoth's grimoire, therefore, requires constant and vigilant alignment with truth, harmony, and balance. It demands a heart that seeks to serve the whole, not just itself. That's why the greatest secret isn't the word itself, but the state of being, the purity of heart, and nobility of intention, required to use it without being corrupted by the very power it grants. The knowledge was forbidden and veiled in mystery and symbolism, not to deprive us of our innate power, but perhaps to protect us from our own spiritual immaturity. It was a cosmic safety mechanism, ensuring that only those who had purified their hearts and aligned their intentions with a higher order could access the most powerful tool in the universe. Power without wisdom and love is the fastest recipe for self-destruction. That's why so many spiritual traditions insist on cultivating virtues before revealing the mysteries. Power, when awakened in unprepared hands, is like fire in a dry field. It destroys everything around it. But in the hands of a light and aligned heart, it becomes the fire of the hearth, the same element, but used to warm, illuminate, and protect. So true initiation isn't about decoding hidden formulas, but about becoming a worthy vessel, capable of holding the force that can shape destinies. Power without wisdom is a recipe for self-destruction. That's why the journey leads us to the dissolution of the grimoire. The grimoire, the word, the breath technique, the heart coherence, all of it was just training tools. They were the scaffolding used to build the structure, the training wheels on a bike. But once the temple is built, once you've learned to balance yourself, the scaffolding is removed and the wheels are taken off. They're no longer necessary because they've served their purpose to guide you to the final destination. This is the great conceptual shift, the liberation from dependence on the technique. Once you fully integrate the state of coherence and alignment into your being, it becomes your default operating mode. You no longer need an external trigger, a specific ritual, or a word to activate the power. Your very presence, your habitual thoughts, your natural energetic signature begin to constantly emit the same harmonizing frequency. Effortlessly, you no longer use the word. You become the word. The instruction manual is no longer needed because you've merged with the operating system. You don't need to read the rules of the game anymore because you've become the game itself, self-aware. The mystery revealed here is that you become a living grimoire. Your influence over your reality and the environment around you is no longer a conscious, deliberate act. It becomes a passive and natural consequence of your existence. You radiate harmony just like the sun radiates light effortlessly and for all. This is the final stage of the great alchemical work, the rebato, the reddening. It's the creation of the legendary Philosopher's stone. Ancient texts made it clear the stone, wasn't a physical object you could carry in your pocket to turn metals or heal diseases. The stone was the alchemists themselves, the human being who, through a long and difficult process of purification and transmutation, had become enlightened, a master of themselves. They don't use the stone, they are the stone. In the Emerald Tablets, Thoth describes his own immortality not as something he needs to maintain actively, but as a state of being he achieved. He can drink from the cup of wisdom at will because he became the very source of wisdom. He no longer needs to seek power outside himself, because he recognizes that power always came from within. The search for the grimoire ends with the understanding that the grimoire was you all along. And that's when individual consciousness expands into collective consciousness. When you become the word, your actions, gestures, and even your mere presence leave vibrational imprints that influence others around you. You transform into a living field of resonance, able to inspire, harmonize, and elevate consciousness without needing speeches or demonstrations. This state isn't about convincing or teaching, but about radiating authenticity in a way that others feel truth in you and awaken their own. The true legacy of the grimoire, then, isn't a secret to be kept, it's a state to be shared. It's the revelation that enlightenment isn't a solo achievement, but a contagious phenomenon, a spark that, once ignited in one being, can spread through all of humanity. So the journey doesn't end with your personal victory. It expands into a collective mission to be the catalyst for the transformation of the world. The seeker finds the treasure, and upon opening it, discovers it was never just for them, was life's gift to all of life. If you made it this far, tell me in the comments what stood out to you the most in this journey. I really want to know how these ideas resonated with you, because each of your insights helps keep this exchange alive and strengthens our community. And if you want to support the channel more directly, there's a link in the first pinned comment where you can contribute and help us spread more content like this. Any support you can give is super important to me and to the growth of the channel. But just the fact that you watched to the end already helps a ton, and you can also share this video with someone who would benefit from this message. Oh, and don't leave just yet. I've got a special video lined up for you. Click the video that's showing up now on the screen and I'll see you there.